Hey guys, thanks for clicking on. Before we start, I want to give a really special thank you to the sponsor for today's video, Amino. Amino is a social networking app consisting of communities for every interest in the world. The community that I favor the most on Amino is the NASCAR community. On Amino, there are a lot of ways to connect with fellow NASCAR fans. These include things like taking quizzes that other members make that'll test your knowledge on the sport, reading people's thoughts and opinions about the sport and different blog posts they put, and also the opportunity to voice your own opinions in polls. Like this one that I put out on Amino a few weeks ago. To do these or share topics with me, click the link in the description below or on the pinned comment below in the comments section to download Amino on iOS, Android, or search on whatever store you use to get your apps. Once you're on Amino, search NASCAR to join and search the Iceberg if you want to follow me. I can't wait to see you all there, and now, back to the video. So, with the new year coming around and everything, I see that everyone's going to be making prediction videos and previews for the season, and quite frankly, I don't think I need to add to that. So for today, what I want to do is the top 10 races that I'm most looking forward to this year. So I'd say before we start, I want to go over some honorable mentions. So really quick, I'm just going to go over 5 that I'm looking forward to and I think have the potential to be great races, but at the same time, they're just not going to make the top 10 for me. So the first one would be Auto Club. Granted, the last few races there have been duds, but at the same time, they've had some really awesome finishes in the last 5 or 6 years too. So hopefully they can get back to form. Maybe the new package can help them with that. The other one that is early in the year that I'm looking forward to is the Martinsville Spring Race. It's Martinsville. There's really not much more you have to say about it. And then the 2 road courses, Sonoma and Watkins Glen. Really looking forward to those. Love the great racing and strategy there. Even if the stage racing might have taken it down a notch, it's still awesome racing all around. And then the Las Vegas night race, because quite frankly, I don't know what to expect. Like, it could be a wreck fest. Granted, there'll be more grip with it being cooler out at the nighttime, but I'll be honest, it's still going to be pretty hot out there in Vegas at that time of year, so still might be some pretty good racing, and changing track conditions will really help with that too. So now, I say we go into my top 10. For number 10, I'm picking the July Daytona race. While it's not the same prestige as the Daytona 500, and really everything is about a notch down compared to the Daytona 500, it's always amazing to see the cars under the lights at the superspeedway there. Well, the last few years have been wreckfest. They've still had some pretty awesome racing and a lot of underdogs up front, and with guys like Ricky Stenhouse and Eric Jones winning there, I think it just proves that there's always a chance for a new winner. So I'm really looking forward to see if we can have a new winner, or if it's going to be somebody like Keselowski or Logano going up and dominating. For number 9, it's the only race I have on here from the lower series. I'm not a big fan of the Xfinity series. I've kind of found it pretty boring the last few years. But the truck racing is always good. I just never look forward to specific truck races, with the exception of this one, the Eldora truck race. It's the only race in NASCAR's top 3 series on dirt right now. The racing there is pretty good. There's always different faces that show up just for the dirt race. Sort of like the way that road course ringers used to be. It's the dirt ringers now, I guess. And just overall, it's just fun to have sort of a crown jewel kind of race in the truck series. You don't really get it as much in Xfinity. And, you always have the ones like Daytona, the Coke 600, Southern 500, Bristol Night Race in Cup. But it's cool to have trucks have something that defines them. As for me, I always look forward to Eldora. Number 8 for me is the All-Star Race. And this is really surprising for me because the All-Star Race is a race that most years I'm loathing to have come. Charlotte's original layout as it is right now, it doesn't produce the best racing. But seeing how NASCAR's using the All-Star Race as more of a testing dummy at this point, I'm really looking forward to see what package they have coming along, especially if 2019 does deliver and they sort of add on to that. I think we'd be in for a pretty good show. This past year, it wasn't the season-defining race or anything, but at the same time, it still was one of the most entertaining all-star races I've ever seen, and one of the most entertaining races of the year. So it'll be a tough act to follow up, but I would love to see if they could. Number 7 for me is Talladega, and it's either of those races. I know it's kind of cheating, but for me, I don't hold preference over one or the other like some other tracks. Obviously, there's the big pack racing. There's the chance that anybody could win. And there's sort of there's a feel to the sport when it's Talladega week. Like, everyone's just a little more up, it feels like, and you know you're in for a good show most of the time. Even Talladega races that are considered duds still have awesome moments. I mean, the 2009 fall race, one of the more boring Talladega races, but everyone remembers it for the crashes and the awesome pack racing at the end. And the last few years have offered some pretty awesome moments. Even if this past year was a bit of a dud, still, it's Talladega. Anything can happen. For number 6, I'm picking Homestead. I look forward to Homestead every year. I'm not really a big fan of the championship elimination format, but it still offers a good track when it comes to racing. I always love to see the cars rim ride and be right up against the wall, especially at nighttime. The way the light shines off the cars as they're doing that just makes them look so much faster. So Homestead definitely number 6, just not in the top 5 though. For number 5, this one surprised me because it's down a few pegs from where it usually is for me, is the Daytona 500. Obviously, everybody looks forward to the Daytona 500 who's a racing fan. It's the start of a new season. There's a chance to add somebody's name to a legacy of the sport that's just unprecedented, really, in my opinion, for any other race. You know, it's the only race that you win it and you're considered the champion of a race. So you're a winner of the Southern 500. You won the Bristol night race, but you're a champion of the Daytona 500. And the way that the racing always is, and it seems more intense than most races because there's so much on the line. And with the intensity it comes with these kind of races, there's just so much more weight to when somebody wins it. You see that pure joy that you don't see really in any other time in the sport except for when somebody wins the championship. It has to be in the top 5 in any list for most anticipated races. For number 4, I'm going to go with the fall Martinsville race. Now, I said earlier that the spring Martinsville race was in my honorable mentions. That race, while it has good racing and it's had great moments through the years, it just doesn't hold a candle to the amazing moments that the fall Martinsville race has. Now, granted, a lot of those have to do with championship implications, cue Rick Allen. But at the same time, there's so many great moments when you look back at the fall Martinsville races. This past year between Truex and Logano, there's Elliott versus Hamlin and the first night race at Martinsville ever. When I was at the fall Martinsville race in 2015, I was blessed enough to see 2 amazing moments that will forever be etched in the history of the sport with Kenseth versus Logano and Jeff Gordon's final win. The thing I remember most about Martinsville and being there at that point, and maybe it's the same thing in the spring, I don't know, because I haven't been there in the spring, but I've been there in the fall, and what it felt like to me was almost like a giant high school stadium. Like, you didn't feel like you were at a national sporting event. You felt like you were just there at a local short track almost. It had that feeling to it, plus the awesome hot dogs. I mean, if you have a chance to go to Martinsville, eat the hot dogs. But the racing in the fall just seems to ramp up more. Even when, more or less for points, the racing doesn't matter, like when Dale Jr. won or when Jeff Gordon won in 2013, it still is Martinsville. You get that grandfather clock. I see Martinsville as like the Wrigley Field of our sport. It has so much history in it and so much weight as well. I know that other big races have weight, and while this isn't a crown jewel race, it feels like one. If you had told me when I started watching the sport that I would have in my top 3 most anticipated races for a year a road course, I would have thought you were crazy. Let alone a road course that wasn't originally supposed to be a road course, the Roval. After the amazing race we had this year, a great debut, I have to be looking forward to that. I think everybody has to be looking forward to it because arguably it had the best race of the year, had one of the best finishes of the year, and a finish that I think 20 years down the line, we're going to be looking at in the highlight reels. You had Truex and Johnson going at it. Truex, one of the big 3 in the year, and Johnson having a down year, but going for that win. You know, might have been the last win for Lowe's had he pulled it off. And then to have Blaney sneak through, what a likable driver to win. I don't see how a racing fan can't get excited for this. I know it's a little gimmicky. People point that out. But at the same time, it's not to the point of absurdity. It's something that you can tell the amount of effort and the amount of thinking that went into it and how they changed the layout when it looked like it wouldn't work. And it put on the best show for the fans. It was probably the best fall Charlotte race I've seen in at least 10 years. For me, usually this race is number one, but for reasons that I think people watching this channel and other channels affiliated with this one will know, it had to be knocked down for this year from the number one spot. For me, number two is Chicagoland. Now, most years, Chicagoland hasn't had the greatest racing. 2014 had a good race. This past year had an excellent race that ramped up as it went on, and another all-time great finish. The big thing about this race is I go to this race. It's been a tradition that me and a few members of my family have had since 2007, and it's one of those things that during the summer, when it was in the summer and just now in the summer again, it's one of those things where I'm like, summer break for me doesn't start until I go to Chicagoland for the race. I've met plenty of drivers. I got to meet my all-time favorite driver at this race back in 2017, which was awesome. I got to meet Dale Jr. I've had so many great memories. Learned a lot about stuff that maybe somebody that was as young as I was at the time shouldn't have been learning, but it's fun. And when the racing is good, it just ramps it up even more for the weekend. And number one, the Brickyard 400. No, I'm kidding. No. The Bristol night race. The Bristol night race. It's Bristol, baby. Come on. It's Bristol. But more than that, the racing this past year was great. It was like a hybrid of the old Bristol where there was conveyor belt on the bottom, but at the same time had the side-by-side racing that the new reconfigured Bristol has had. And you had the beating and banging that everybody loves. You had the wrecks. You had the awesome fights for the lead. There were so many fights for the lead in this last year's Bristol night race. And even in the spring race, too. You had guys like Bubba Wallace up there. Underdogs up there, which was really awesome to see. While it didn't work out, still, it was amazing. But at the same time, we all know, I think, like I said, if you've been watching this channel, I think you all know, though, why this is the number one spot for me in most anticipated races this year. And it has to do with who's going to be there. I'm going to be there, and some of my best friends on YouTube are going to be there. I can't wait to meet all these people. I can't believe that my first Bristol night race will be with all these people that I've respected and watched and talked to and gotten to be good friends with. And I can't help but be so excited for this August. So that is my number one most anticipated race. But now, as I like to say, it's your turn. Tell me in the comments, what's yours? Lick the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Why haven't you subscribed? But anyway, tell me what you want to see. What races are you looking forward to? I can't wait to see them in the comments below. And until next time, have a good one.